Okay, we're live. Welcome everyone to the third and final webinar of this semester. Oh, hey, Aaron, what's up?
Good, how are you?
Thank God, doing well. Glad you joined us. Many people won't be able to make it today for obvious reasons, holiday break, whatever. So we'll just do it just the three of us, and then whoever will watch later, will watch. Okay, so this webinar you're going to see is a little bit different than the other webinars that we have had. Mainly that after an entire semester of really most, if not all, of our fellows really doing incredible things on campus and really focusing outward on their community and their entire campus at large. The idea of this webinar is really to focus inwards and to think of ourselves a little bit while many of us are still finishing up are in the middle or finishing up our break, kind of just to remember that who we are and the growth that we go through on campus is just as important as the growth that our community goes through. So the idea of this webinar is really just to look inward and to think of the Jewish perspective of what we call the you of Kahal, learning about what Judaism wants from us as individuals, and then hopefully maybe taking it to the next level of what we can give from ourselves to the community. But for the most part, for the next 40 minutes or so, we're just gonna look inwards. Okay, so maybe before we start, maybe everyone, if you don't mind, could just go around, quickly say your name for those of you who are in your first live webinar of the semester and what campus you're on, and then just maybe give a highlight of the semester. Could be Kahal related, maybe not at all Kahal related. Just any really good highlights that come to mind of good things that happened. So who wants to start?
I'll go first just to get over with. So I'm Aaron, sophomore at Suffolk University on the Boston City area campus. And it wasn't non-Kahal related, so it was like we had a festival of lights at our school. So like all the different like interfaiths came together to celebrate the holiday. So that was very nice. It was a good turnout.
Cool. How many people came?
Probably like 20-ish, probably, but like it was like all different cultures came together, so it was like mixed, basically.
That is really nice. Wow. Cool. Thanks. Either of the Hannahs want to go next?
I can go. So I'm Hannah Greenberg, and I'm at the University of Delaware. So I guess for our last Shabbat of the semester, Hillel didn't have a Shabbat, so I decided to host a Shabbat in my dorm. And it went really well, because like originally I think we had invited, well, at least I had invited about 8 people, and people were like, oh, we'll bring friends, and by the end of it, I think there were about 15, 16 people who came, and it was very nice. It was fun.
So. Cool. Thanks, Hannah. And
I'm Hannah Citron. I go to UW-Madison. For me, my highlight's going to happen in a couple days. I'm going on an Olami-sponsored trip to Poland.
Whoa, that's awesome.
Very nice.
How long is the trip?
It's about 10 days.
That's incredible. And it's kind of just like Holocaust.
Yeah. Oh. We're kind of doing a loop between like Warsaw, Krakow, seeing pretty much all the concentration camps.
That's incredible. Wow. Yeah, I went to Poland a few, I guess maybe 7, 8 years ago at this point. Probably one of the most life-changing trips you can have. So, wow. Cool. Okay, great. Thanks, guys. So let's get right to it. You're going to see that we have much more sources than we normally do, because this is going to be primarily a text-based webinar. And the sources are basically divided into 2 different categories. The first group of sources that we're going to be looking at is going to talk about character traits, how Judaism views the refinement of character traits, and where does that fall in the line of our Jewish obligations. And then the second part will be more commandment related. What are the different obligations and commandments that we have as Jews, and how does that play into the people that we're supposed to be for our communities, and hopefully campus life as well. So we definitely have more sources than people. So people could volunteer to read. If not, I can just read and we could just discuss it a little bit. But does anyone want to read the first source?
I can read it.
Okay, go for it.
Cool. So Rav Chaim Vital, Sharei HaKadusha, Section 1, Gate 2. Good character traits are a prerequisite for the fulfillment of the Torah's commandments. Character traits are not included in the 613 mitzvot, but they are essential prerequisites for the 613 mitzvot, since they can lead either to their proper fulfillment or their desecration. Thus, we find that a person must be even more careful in staying away from bad character traits than in fulfilling the positive and negative commandments, because when he achieves refinement of character, he will be able to easily fulfill all of the mitzvot.
Okay, great. Maybe you want to summarize what that just said?
So basically, it's saying there are two things in order to be a good Jew. Obviously, the 613 mitzvot, but before we can even do that, we have to make sure that we ourselves have good character traits and are doing good things.
Okay, great. Thanks. We'll get back to discussing a little more in a second. Does someone want to quickly just read the second source?
I'll do it.
Great, go for it.
Should I do in English, basically?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. All service of God is dependent upon the improvement of one's character, since character traits are like clothing to the mitzvot, and are the general principle of the Torah. Conversely, all transgressions stem from character trait. Should I do explanation?
Okay, yeah, go for it.
Explanation from Rabbi Reuben are vessels.
Okay, Aaron, I think you're breaking up a little bit.
Holiness of the mitzvah here in this world.
Okay, Aaron, I think maybe I'll just finish reading it because you're breaking up a little bit. So explanation from Rabbi Reuven Lechter. The meaning of the term clothing here is that the character traits are the vessels through which the holiness of the mitzvot are revealed here in this world. Just as a person reveals himself through his clothing, and that is apparently the reason that the character traits are the general good principles of the general principles of the Torah, because the entire purpose of the Torah is to reveal holiness in this world. Okay, so kind of a lot to unpack there. So maybe let's start with the following question. Why do you think that so in case anyone isn't familiar, the word that we're using for character trait is the Hebrew word of midot. And so it's an interesting word in general in the Hebrew language, but maybe just to start off with the question, why do you think they're not really defining character traits, as if we're supposed to understand what they are? Does anyone have any ideas? Okay, so maybe just to start off. So midot, another translation for midot. So we usually use it, colloquially we use it most often as like, yeah, character traits, being like a mensch, if you will. But midot also means like measurements. So maybe that the idea is that character traits, maybe the idea is that it is supposed to be a general term, just like measurements are kind of general and they could be, you know, small, large, whatever. So maybe character traits don't have to be defined as anything. It's almost as if there is an innate knowledge of what they are. What does character traits mean? It basically just means to be a good person. How do you define that? Maybe it is societally based, maybe it is based on the time, but whatever would be determined as having good character traits, as being like a good person without, you know, any sense of obligation of Torah laws or things like that, that is a prerequisite.
Yeah, just to go off that, so in math we were learning about measurements, and we discussed how if you were to like go like this and hold up and be like, oh, how much space is between my fingers, everyone would say, oh, it's about an inch. So just to go off that, saying like, we all know what good characteristics are. So if you say, oh, this person did X, we would know, oh, that person has good characteristics, versus if this person did Y, that would be like not so good. Yeah.
Cool. I really like that. Thanks, Anna. Okay, great. So maybe let's look at the third and fourth source, and then talk a little bit more about this, and then we'll just go on to the next topic. So anyone want to read source number 3?
I'll read it.
Go for it.
If you do not possess refined character traits, then neither do you possess Torah and mitzvot, for the entire Torah depends on the refinement of character traits.
That's interesting.
Yeah, wow. So kind of like the first two sources we're talking about how before the other commandments of the Torah comes the expectation of having good character traits. And now this source is almost launching it to the next level that you can follow the Torah completely according to the black and white letter of the law. But if you do and you don't have good character traits, then you might as well not have done anything, because if you're not a good person, then God doesn't care about the rest, which is like pretty intense. And then probably one of my favorite lines ever is source number 4. Does anyone want to? I think actually I'll read it since I love it so much. So I'll read it in Hebrew. Well, that's actually Aramaic, I think, and then I'll read it in English. Ikar chiyus ha'adam hu lehitzchazik tamid b'shvirat hamidot ve'im lav lama lo chayim. So the Vilna Gaon, he's saying, the prime purpose of man's life is to constantly strive to break his bad traits. In other words, to choose a negative thing about their character, and to always try to refine that. And he says, if a person doesn't do this, what is life for? What is the meaning of life? In other words, very clearly, the Vilna Gaon is saying that the whole purpose of life is just to refine character traits. And it's interesting because he could be referring to other things other than just the basic character traits, which maybe we'll discuss in a little bit. So, okay, looking at all the sources that we've seen so far, why do you think that there seems to be such a huge emphasis on the refinement of character traits, most likely before we even begin to do any mitzvos? Why is that the most important thing?
The person should always strive to be a good Jew and always do the best that they can in life.
Okay, interesting way that you phrase that, to be a good Jew, right? Because these traits, there's nothing Jewish about them. Being a good person doesn't mean being a good Jew. It just means being a good human being.
I'm referring to Judaism. That's why I'm saying that. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So going back to what you said. Sorry. So, do you mind repeating what you said?
So it's like being a good Jew, or in other words, being a good person in general, just to strive and always be the best, because that's how you be a better person. Working on your bad traits to overcome it to become a better person.
Okay, so but why is that more important than fulfilling black and white obligations that the Torah gives us? Or why? Yeah, why is it the prerequisite?
Okay, it's I'm gonna refer back to the holidays, because it goes from Yom Kippur to Rosh Hashanah, or vice versa, whatever. It's because you have to first fix yourself, then once you fix yourself, you can go on to go better, and go into the new year pure. So it's you're working the best of to go on to the new. Make sense?
I think what you're saying is that the only way you can do mitzvos, which may be kind of like the second level of what is expected of mankind, is that you need to be able to do the basics of man, which is just being a good person.
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I like that. So, okay, so maybe to bounce off that question, but bounce off that point, does that mean that you can't actually do any mitzvos before you're a good person?
No, you can still do it, but it's you can still do it, but it's the most important thing is just to fix your bad traits, basically.
Okay, good. I like it. Anyone else have anything to say?
I would disagree with the first source's use of the word prerequisite. I think
Okay.
Having good character traits definitely makes your mitzvos stronger. I don't want to say better, but stronger. But also doing the mitzvos can improve your character traits.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah. So kind of the one perspective is that before you can even begin to do the mitzvot, you need to be a good person, and then you can go on and do the loftier obligations that the Torah lays out for us. But the other perspective, which I really think is spot on, is that doing the actual commandments, which we'll delve into that a little bit more in a few minutes, that actually is what makes our character better. Which I think there's a lot to say for that. I also think that could be what the Vilna Gaon is hinting to in the fourth source, right? He says that the purpose of man's life is to constantly break bad traits, but he doesn't necessarily say how to do that. And it could be that the way to do that is through mitzvos. So yeah, I totally agree. Anyone else have anything to add? Okay, great. So good. So really briefly, just to sum up what we did, we spoke about the value of character traits and why the Torah views just refining the person that we are to be an incredible value. And there are two possibilities: either it becomes before the other obligations, or maybe it's intertwined with the obligations that we have from the Torah. Okay, great. Next set of sources. So, by the way, these sources, in case you can't tell, they look different than what we usually have. I found them on a website. It's actually a website focused on, like, I think, hero kind of things. I'm not trying to be Makari to anyone here. This happens to be that it was on a website from like one of these hero organizations, but it happens to be that they are really interesting sources. So yeah, just wanted the source actually should be on the bottom of the sheet. So if you want to check it out, also. Okay, so moving from this world of kind of vague obligations of recognizing that we should be good people, the Torah obviously does lay out, laws that we should be trying to do as best as we can. What I wanted to focus on was what we like to call the big three, which, if someone maybe wants to read the first source in the first source that we have over here in Pirkei Avot.
I can. All right. So Shimon the righteous was one of the last survivors of the Great Assembly. He used to say, the world rests on three things: on Torah, on avodah, divine service, and on acts of kindness. Should I read the little thing under it? Like the importance? I'll just read it.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. The importance of prayer is derived from its direct relationship to avodah, divine service in the temple. After the destruction of the temple, prayer replaced avodah as a primary means of building a relationship with God on both a personal and national level.
Okay, great, thanks. Right, so the first source, we'll talk about prayer in a second and avodah, how it all fits in. But the first source tells us basically that the three kind of key things that you need, that the world rests on, which seemingly exist on two levels, meaning that we need to strive for in our own personal commitment to Judaism and also on a communal level. But let's stick with the personal level right now. The three things that you need are Torah, avodah, which, as the paragraph beneath explains, it's prayer, and acts of kindness. So I think it's appropriate to categorize that everything else that we've been doing this semester as kind of like Gimel Chasadim, acts of kindness, that the things that everyone does, running a Shabbat meal or running an event, that's all within the category of chesed, doing kind things for other people, for other fellow Jews. So maybe just to specifically focus on Torah and avodah, on prayer. So could someone want to maybe take a look at the second source and read it for us? It's a little bit technical, but you should be able to figure it out.
I'll do it.
Great, go for it.
Hitpalel, from which tefillah is derived, originally meant to deliver an opinion about oneself, to judge oneself, or an inner attempt at doing so, such as the hitpael form of the Hebrew verb frequently denotes. Thus, it denotes to step out of active life in order to attempt to gain a true judgment about oneself, about one's relationship to God and the world to oneself. In English, we call tefillah prayer, but this word only incompletely expresses the concept to pray. For example, to ask for something is only a minor section of tefillah.
Okay, wow. Can you maybe summarize that a little bit?
I don't know why they're talking about that other word, hitpalel.
Okay, so hitpalel, you generally means, like, hitpalel means to pray. So that's what they're.
Okay.
But yeah, just the parts that you could summarize.
So basically, praying is not just us asking God for something. It's being introspective. It's thanking God. It's doing a lot of different things than just a request, kind of.
Okay,
in the way that more modern people who are not Jewish might think.
Okay, good. Right. So kind of viewing prayer as saying that it's not just making a request from God, but also making requests of ourselves, of learning more about ourselves, trying to understand who we are as better people. It's actually one of the reasons given for, it's like one of the famous questions: why do we have to ask God for things in prayer? Doesn't God already know what we want? The answer is that when we pray, we're not just asking for God. We're not just asking God for things. We're also understanding ourselves in a deeper level, so that maybe we can grow to be worthy of the things that we're asking for. That's one perspective that people have on prayer sometimes. Okay, and maybe we'll just read the third source, and then we'll discuss a little bit more. Aaron, you want to give it a shot?
I'll try to, yeah. Out of all the means that God has given us to come close to Him, there is one that stands higher than all the rest. This is the study of Torah. This consists of two parts. One is the reading and understanding of the Torah, and the other is the deeper comprehension of Torah. With His kindness, God authored a text in accordance with His wisdom, which He then presented to us. This is the Torah, the 5 books of Moses, as well as the books of the prophets that followed. These texts have a special property, namely, that when one reads them with sanctity and purity, and with the proper intent to fulfill God's will, he will be imbued with a great loftiness and a very great level of perfection. Similarly, when one works at understanding the content of these books, as well as the accompanying explanations that God presented to us, he will attain one level of perfection after another.
Okay, maybe summarize. You can.
Basically, that when you read it, when you study Torah, it's a whole like another level. Basically, you come much closer than you can. That's what you can.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so let's take a step back for a second. So prayer is another way of saying learning more about ourselves and working on ourselves. And Torah is another way of getting closer to God by learning more of it. You get closer to God because God's divinity is imbued within the Torah. Okay, so we just said that we're talking about the commandments now, and the if you will, the 3 most important commandments in a sense are Torah, Avodah, and Gemilut Chasadim, acts of kindness. But it seems that with these 3 commandments that we're trying to refine our character traits as well, right? It seems that so the source talking about learning Torah, that's talking about getting closer to God, but you get closer to God and you hopefully become a better person. The source of our prayer is talking about working on ourselves, looking inward. So I guess my question is, and this will hopefully lead us to now the second part of the discussion is what's the difference? What's the difference at the end of the day? And this maybe even goes to something that Hannah was saying before, between doing mitzvos in the Torah and working on our character traits. Is there any technical difference? Because it seems like you're always going to end up in the same place at the end of the day if you're doing things properly.
I think one is a spiritual sense, which is like learning Torah, and then the other is like I wouldn't say physical sense, but like another form of like fixing yourself, the traits. That's what I think.
Okay, what do you mean? Maybe just unpack that a little more.
Like for like the easy ones, like when you study Torah, that like nourishes your neshama, like you're changing your soul. But like whenever you're fixing on just like character traits, it's a different like level of like purity of like fixing yourself. What I interpret it as. That's the differences.
But at the end of the day, wouldn't you say that if you're purifying your character traits, then you're purifying your soul as well? So then
It's 2 different things, really. Because like when you purify your soul, you're not. It's actually like sometimes it could be the same thing. Because whenever you change your neshama, like your soul, like you can also change like how like your traits are. So it could be in a way the same thing actually. That I think.
Okay, so Aaron thinks that character traits and mitzvahs kind of are basically the same thing. They're all intertwined. Refining both of them are like all in one.
Yeah.
Okay, anyone disagree with that?
I partially disagree.
Okay.
I guess what's key is when you're doing like mitzvot and the commandments, is like it's to think about like why you're doing them. Because if you're doing them just to like get them done, then you're not really enhancing your character traits. But if you're doing it for the right reasons, then yes, the 2 are definitely very much connected. So I guess the key with them to be connected is to make sure you're doing them for the right reasons.
Okay, that's a really good point. What I would question back to you is that can you actually check off the box? Can you fulfill an obligation without doing something for the right reason?
Oh, I don't know. I guess yes, but I mean, like, if you think
That's it.
when you want like a little kid to like do something correctly, you might like give them a treat afterwards. So like if you want to remind your child to like I don't know, I'm trying to think of a good example. I don't know. I don't know. I guess I'll go with lighting Shabbos candles. But like, let's say you want your child to like remember to like light the Shabbos candles. You might give them a piece of candy to eat after they light them, so that they'll think, oh, after I light the candles, I'm going to get candy. And then once your child's older, they might begin to, well, you'd want to stop giving them candy, but then they'd realize that, oh, we're actually lighting these candles to welcome in Shabbat. So I guess it's like a progression. So you might not start doing something for the right reason, but as you continue to do the action, you might then develop an actual connection to the mitzvot you're doing.
Okay, so yeah, incredible. I totally agree. I'm not sure if you realize that you're quoting like Gemara's right and left.
Oh, no.
There's one argument in the Gemara that talks about mitzvot tzrichot kavana or mitzvot enot tzrichot kavana. Do mitzvot do you need to have the right intention when you do mitzvot, or do you not? So it's actually not so simple how we conclude for like practical applications. Like, can a person do a mitzvah without having the right intentions and still fulfill the obligation? The answer is basically kind of yes, but also not really. It kind of calls into question what the average Jew that's kind of going to service it. Forget about the average Jew. The ultra Orthodox Jews who are super steeped in all these things. If they're not completely intentional at every moment of their prayers or their learning, one can maybe call into obligation if they're actually fulfilling commandments. It's a huge issue, actually. It's really complicated. So that was one thing that you touched upon. The other thing is the idea of mitoch shelo lishma balishma, that Chazal, like our rabbis, teach us that when we do mitzvot and we don't have we're not doing it for the right reason. Maybe we're trying to teach our kids, or maybe we ourselves can't get into the proper reasons, but we like some other reasons behind it. So as long as we do something for the wrong reason, eventually Chazal teach us that eventually we'll be doing it for the right reason. So I think that this all kind of really fits in very nicely. To now that we unpack, maybe to repack everything together. So we at the beginning we were talking about character traits and refining them and how that's important. Some people said it was a prerequisite. Some people say it was intertwined with doing mitzvot. Then we kind of looked into the whole mitzvah category, and it seems like a lot of the mitzvot are about refining our character, whether it be prayer, where it's introspection, or whether it be learning Torah, which kind of brings us closer to God, which essentially would hopefully mean character refinement. So how do we understand all of this together? And I think the answer is that in Judaism, there is one thing that we're trying to accomplish on a personal level, on a communal level, on a campus level, on a world level, and that is we're all trying to get closer to the ultimate truth. And a lot of religions and a lot of different sects would define that differently. We define the ultimate truth as God. And we in Judaism want to get closer to God ultimately. And what that means for us is a lot of different things. It means learning Torah. It means being a good person. It means praying to God. But it really just means that at the end of the day, we want to get closer to Him. And in order to do that, we just have to always be thinking inward and thinking how we can improve the person that we are. And since there are so many avenues that Judaism allows to do that, whether it be through the general character refinements or through prayer or through learning Torah, it's so easy to do if you just realize that there are so many ways that God has made it possible for us to do it. So on that note, kind of going from this idea of realizing how it's such a Jewish value to be working on ourselves, and there are so many ways to do it. I want to pose a question to all of you, and hopefully all of you will get a chance to answer. And the question is, how often do you think on your campus, you personally, or people in general, have the opportunity to work on themselves as an individual? And usually, to work on yourself as an individual, a lot of times you need a community, like bigger campuses that may have a stronger community, may have an open Beit Midrash where people could come and learn. maybe they'll have, daily or weekly services. But on your campuses, that might be a little bit of a smaller community. How often do you think that those opportunities are out there, and for you to work on yourself personally, through, I guess, a communal avenue? And if there are, what are they? And if there aren't, what do you think can be accomplished to do that?
I would say on our campus, we definitely have opportunities. I think the key thing, though, is do people take advantage of them? Because we have a weekly tech study. We only have services Friday night. So it's really up to you to come to the different programs that we have, because it's estimated that Delaware has about 2,000 Jewish students on campus. But I can tell you at tech study, there are at max 5 of us, which, it's fine and it's fun. But like, I would love it if more people came, but I don't know if that will ever happen. And like at Friday night services, we always make a minyan, but we usually get more people for dinner. So we'll probably have maybe 15 at services and maybe like 50, 60 at dinner. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I think the key, it's up to you. Like, if you want to do more learning sessions, well, then there are resources at your disposal. You can either talk to the rabbinic intern at Hillel or talk to the Chabad rabbi. Yeah, we once had not a weekly minyan, but we've had minyan during the week, and that was when someone came and was like, hey, I have to say Kaddish, let's make this happen. So like, it's definitely possible to do more, but I think you have to make sure that you take the prerogative and go for it, or else it's not going to happen. So
okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Thank you. And Aaron and other Hannah, what about on your campuses?
I mean, there's not a big Jewish life, but I feel like if, let's say, there's people that would like come up to me or someone in the Hillel and like want to do this stuff, like a textual class or something like that, they'll like, we can like try to arrange to do it. We did it last year of studying, but it wasn't like serious. It was a kind of serious something, kind of not, just like a little like get together to like talk about like textual stuff, and we had like a good turnout for that. Like different people came, so that's good. We didn't do it this next year because we have a different advisor. But like, if let's say we have people that want it, then we can probably arrange to do it. So like, if we have people that do it, if that want it, we can do it. But like, so yeah.
Okay.
On my campus, there's definitely a lot of opportunity. The variety of it is maybe not so much there, but usually there's some sort of incentive involved. So I think while we have people who are decently involved with those things, they're definitely not doing it for the right reasons.
Okay. Kind of like what Hannah was talking about earlier about like giving a cookie to a kid or something to.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. I guess I have 2 more follow-up questions. One, and you don't have to answer, so feel free to volunteer. And if no one wants to answer, we can just go to the next question. Do you feel personally fulfilled on your campus? Do you feel like you are, I guess, making the most of the resources that you have already? Because it does sound like, in terms of these individualized resources, for the most part, you guys seem to have it available on some level. So do you feel like you make the most of these resources? And B, do you feel like that I guess you could be doing more on your own, but it's just so hard to do without the rest of the community backing you to do it?
Well, for me personally, I feel like if we like, I think what you said the second part of like, it's harder because we don't have enough people. So if we got enough people, we could do it. So yeah, if we had enough people, we could probably do it.
But what about you personally? Right,
me personally, like I should be, but like I don't do it as often. I should be just like studying or whatever, because like I have like just like different things going on. But like I would, if let's say they offered it and we got enough people to do it, then I definitely go with it. But like me personally, like I haven't done it because like I would do it on my own or something like that. Because like I just like don't do. I don't know. I don't have a proper reason. So yeah, but so we got enough people, we could do it. So yeah.
Okay, yeah, I just want to clarify. I'm not like there's no like should be or should it be. I'm not.
Yeah, no.
I'm certainly not trying to police. I'm yeah, just genuinely curious. Okay. Yeah. Anyone else?
Sure. Personally, I'd love to say that I'm taking advantage of all the resources I have on my campus. But I can definitely say that there's a lot I would like to do that just that I haven't done because like classes are a thing, and I'm involved in other stuff outside of Jewish life, and not to. Sounds like I'm making excuses, but it's just sometimes life gets the better of you, and it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
I feel like I am taking advantage of a lot of the resources, but I'm doing it very informally. So it's very much more of a one-on-one thing with me, which is why I personally can say that, but probably a majority of people can't.
Got it. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Along the lines of what Hannah Greenberg was saying. I totally relate to that. You know, even I'm not in college anymore, obviously. But even that feeling of kind of there are so many resources that the world at large has to offer, and certainly whichever community we find ourselves in, there's always something being offered. And I totally feel that feeling of wanting to do more, but not always taking all the opportunities just because of involvement in other things. And so maybe without having too much more discussion, I had a few more things I wanted to speak about. And maybe we'll just leave it with a question, and then we'll just tie things up for the semester. Is there one thing that we can be working on for the next few weeks, maybe for the coming semester, that it's a given, it's for sure that either there may not be enough resources, or for many of us it might be hard to individualize resources and to kind of make more things available for ourselves, and kind of to take the bull by the horns, and take and do as much as we can on campus because we're so busy. But is there one individual thing that we can start working on within ourselves, just to make us stronger, just to make us stronger communal leaders? Is there more tech study that we could be doing on our own? Is there more praying that maybe praying once a day if we don't pray once a day, or 3 times a day if that's where we stand? Just or taking upon ourselves to smile at every person that we see, or like I used to do. There was one semester when I was in college, I was super into every time I went in the elevator, I forced myself. I had to make conversation with every single person that I met, and I met like dozens of people. So much so that there was actually one person who came over to me a few months later, and he said, "Dove, hey, how are you doing?" And through the elevators, I didn't know who he was, and he said, "Do you remember me? We met on the elevator that time, and you wanted to get to know me, and we were going to get together." I'm like, yeah, sure. So great to see you. I'm like, yeah. Okay, I personally didn't remember him at all, but what clearly came out of that was that this person felt so much love and support from just a random person that he happened to see in an elevator. And so when we talk about choosing things to work on, it doesn't have to be a mitzvah. It could also just be a mitzvah, just a character trait, saying hi to people randomly for no reason. So let me leave you with that question. Is there anything that we can be adding, just one thing to our lives that might make us stronger leaders, that might make us stronger Jews? So I'm going to leave it at that. Just to quickly sum up. So I'm not even going to sum up the webinar because I think we had a lot of sum ups. I want to sum up the semester though. The first webinar we spoke about religious life on campus. And kind of building a religious community, how to see the perspective of the religious community and focus in on that, and not to the exclusion of others, but to strengthen those people who are more religiously aligned and make a stronger cohort out of that. The second webinar we spoke about outreach and making sure that we weren't being closed off to all the other Jews on campus that are there to be, that they're there to be reached out to, and that may want to be involved, but we just may not be able to see it. So keeping our eyes open. And this semester, this webinar, we looked inward and try to focus on ourselves and think about who we are and how that affects the leaders that we can be, and how to make ourselves stronger leaders. And without going through too many boring numbers and stats, which don't worry, I'll send out emails letting you all know the exact numbers. But it's pretty incredible, the amount of events that our 30 fellows ran this semester, the amount of Jews that we touched all across America, all across Canada. And really, I guess if I just had one thing to say, I just wanted to thank you guys for a really strong semester. It's pretty inspiring just to watch what a few students are able to do just with a few extra resources and maybe just a few extra, a few webinars. And so yeah, so really thank you guys. And looking forward to an awesome semester ahead. We have some really good webinars planned, the Shabbaton, which I hope all of you are coming to.
Yeah,
Okay, most of you are coming to. And yeah, it should be a really exciting semester. So I think we'll end it here. And yeah, have a great Hanukkah, guys.
you too.
Yeah.
Have a good day, guys.
Yep.